Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Kathleen Webb, Greater Hartford Wellness. Welcome to Chats on Friday mornings. I'm here in the office. It's very quiet. No one is here. I'm in the workshop room on a kind of overcast day, but I'm really glad that you're here to join me. We're going to be talking about moderation today. So, in light of some recent lifestyle changes, all of us have been needing to go through in terms of social distancing and hunkering down and kind of staying at home. I felt like this is a great topic for us to talk about because I don't know about you, but I've noticed that I've been doing things a little differently since I've been spending more time at home. Um, Predominantly things that are more would be considered vices or things that aren't so great for me. Things have just gotten a little laxed. So want to talk with you about that. I think it's a natural thing that us as human beings will go through when we need to make changes, and also changes that might be uncomfortable. So the first thing we're going to open with is a quote about moderation. Be moderate in order to taste the joys of life in abundance. I think that is a great quote and speaks to kind of why we're talking about it today, so that we can engage in activities in meaningful ways and ways that we can get the most out of our activities. So a general rule of thumb is, and you've probably heard this over the years, is too much of anything is probably not such a great idea. Okay. So what I'd like for us to start with is having us all think about what are things that you've noticed that may have changed since we've been spending more time at home. We're kind of hunkered down, not going out as much. What are the things that we're doing more of? Okay. So and while you're thinking about this, please feel free to type in the chat. I've noticed that I make my way to the pantry and the kitchen a little bit more. So I'm eating at like different times, at times I wouldn't normally, because I don't have the structure of work. I find myself snacking, heading to the pantry, and that kind of thing. So we have one person saying that they're sleeping more and that they're drinking more caffeine. I would say I'm sleeping more too. Like the way I used to be able to get up in the morning, it's definitely changed because there's this sense of lax because we don't have to get up and go necessarily to get out the door in the morning. So drinking more caffeine as well. So some examples of things that we tend to do, and too much of something, too much of it may not be such a great idea. So internet, drinking alcohol, eating, sometimes exercise for people, gossiping. Sometimes work is something that we exceed in, we do too excessively. So, I mean, pretty much any behavior we engage in, there's the possibility of doing too much of it. So, and the reason why we're talking about this today is, certainly about our emotional health. So thinking about what we're doing, what our behavior, what the impact of those things has on our emotional health. And so during this pandemic of COVID-19, collectively our anxiety levels are just a little elevated. I mean, not just, they are. And so when we feel anxious, we tend to, fall back on things that feel good and feel comforting. And so, but what might happen is if we engage in that something for too long, it creates more anxiety and creates more problems. So that's what I want to kind of help us understand today. What behaviors and activities can be considered a comfort, and what is considered numbing, and what is considered addiction. And so part of my learning about all these things is I'm a certified facilitator with Brene Brown's work. For those of you that don't know her, she's a social work researcher that has given so much insight about vulnerability and shame and dealing with uncomfortable feelings. So what we're going to talk about is the difference between comfort, numbing, and addiction. And so, like I said, pretty much any behavior could fall in one of these categories. Okay, so comfort. Engaging in something that feels that's comforting. It could be seen as a source of self-care, right? So, having a glass of wine to relax after a really stressful week. That could be a form of self-care. You know, watching some TV to chill out and relax. That's another form of self-care. Having some chocolate, having a treat to just feel good and have enjoyment. Those are examples of what would feel like there's a comfort in that, right? So that's sort of like what would be considered a comfort. And so I would imagine that right now we're engaging in things to feel more comfortable. I mean, this is an uncomfortable time that we are in, right? And so for various reasons, whether we're worried about getting sick or it feels weird and it doesn't feel good to not have the same schedule and lifestyle that we're used to having right now. So it makes sense that we're going to lean towards some things that just feel better and feel good. So the next category is numbing. And so for those of you that don't know what numbing means, numbing, as Brene Brown would talk about it, is sort of a way to armor us and protect us from feeling vulnerable, protect us from having to deal with things in the forefront. And so as a culture, we numb a tremendous amount. Some of us numb and we don't even realize we're numbing. I think probably one of the most widespread examples of numbing is technology and social media. So because it's just accessible and we lose track of what we're doing and we end up spending more time on it generally than we intend to sometimes. And so the thing about numbing is so it can feel like an escape. It can feel like I'm just shutting the door to whatever stressor that is going on. But one of the things about numbing that's really important to understand is when we numb, and again, it could be with anything. It could be with internet, it could be with drinking, it could be with eating, anything. When we numb, we also shut the door on all the good feelings. So I'm going to use the example of chocolate because I love chocolate. And that's definitely can be a vice for me. And so it's sort of this difference between having a few pieces of chocolate that are just like they melt in my mouth and they feel so good, and I just love the taste of it. Particularly milk chocolate for me, that's my particular preference. And so eating that chocolate and feeling it's so good, it's so wonderful, and just really getting so much pleasure from it, that is different from continuing to eat the chocolate and then eating a lot of chocolate and eating a few bars of chocolate. And at some point when we're engaging in excessiveness, I'm actually not even going to taste that chocolate the same way anymore. And I won't even recognize the taste of it. And so when we numb in behavior, we shut the door on getting the enjoyment of it. And I feel like that's true of again, any behavior. And so then it ends up becoming just a function. And then we don't realize, we get a little unconscious about that behavior. And so I want to really caution people right now about numbing, because this is the point of the moderation. It's figuring out what's a comfort and what brings you joy, and then what's numbing, and being able to recognize when you might be numbing, and then being able to be aware of it and shifting it, because it's not going to serve us too well. The third thing is addiction. And so addiction, sort of the opposite end of the spectrum of comfort, in that addiction is engaging in a behavior that's really excessive and it's compulsive and it's hard not to do it. It's more than just a way to like kind of escape. I mean, it's like a really maladaptive way to relationship with whatever behavior. So we definitely want to try to avoid getting to that point, right? So what I'd like for us to do in thinking about moderation in your life is I want you to think of an activity that you find yourself doing, and I want you to examine your relationship with that activity. So I want you to ask yourself how it's serving you. Okay. So if you're having a hard time thinking of something, pick like TV or pick internet searching. Maybe it's a game you're doing, a video game. I mean, there's countless ways that we engage in things to just feel good, things that we like. So I want you to think of the behavior, and I want you to ask yourself how it is serving you. And in asking yourself how it's serving you, when you think about engaging in that behavior, when are you experiencing enjoyment and pleasure of it? And when are you numbing with it? And again, going back to that example of the chocolate, um, when I'm eating the first couple bits of chocolate, like, oh, it tastes so wonderful and delicious. And then if I get carried away, I may end up eating more, and then I'm not even like enjoying it in the same way, and it's just like I'm eating chocolate, and it just becomes sort of like this numbing activity. So what I'd like to know is, what are some examples of activities that you find yourself maybe numbing sometimes? I want you to share them with us. Mm. So I have a great question. What advice do you have for those of us who are perhaps using social media as a way to connect with friends in this time when we can't connect in person? And how do we moderate? That is a great question, and we're going to actually get to that in a moment. So if you're recognizing that maybe you're spending too much time on social media, and so for some of that time, at least some of that time, you're really connecting with friends, because we can't physically be with each other in person right now, right? That's this thing we have to deal with. And so what I want you to start thinking about in terms of moderating is um, making a plan to help keep you on track. Okay. So the way that we do this is, when you're engaging in social media, maybe you're talking to your friends, what I want you to do is think about mindfully engaging in it. So I want you to be like aware of how you're feeling and what you're getting from that activity. So if you're engaging in social media, if it's bringing you joy, maybe you're seeing like jokes or funny memes. Maybe you are staying informed. Certainly with the news, that can be a really anxiety provoking situation. And you might start getting worked up and upset about it. And so then you may actually be seeking out more. Mindfully engage in the activity. Okay. So understanding when it becomes something you're getting joy and comfort from, and then when it turns to, oh, I'm like totally zoned out, I'm actually getting more anxious. So being aware of that in yourself, and then making a plan. So an example of how we might moderate is, if you happen to, so with the social media, maybe you make dates with friends of when you're going to FaceTime or Zoom or whatever, so that you have a something to look forward to. You're going to connect with them, and it's that kind of specific period of time in your day that you're going to have that social connection. Another thing, if you're not directly live, kind of interacting with friends, is maybe you make a plan of like when you're going to go on social media. I know for me, I really don't look at social media until the evening when I just kind of want to relax and chill out. And I really try to keep it at a minimum of like 15 minutes. And that's just for me. And so this is the thing about the moderation piece, is moderation, and therefore numbing too. If we're engaging in something too much, really the only one that can answer the question of whether you're numbing or you're getting comfort is you, because it's the relationship you have with the behavior. So I want you to really think about that and consider how might a certain behavior activity could be modified so that you get the maximum amount of pleasure and enjoyment from it and comfort from it. Okay. So hopefully that question was answered. Thank you so much for asking. I think that's a very common thing that we're going through right now. And again, this is just an opportunity for more awareness and engaging in the world in a more mindful way. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. We are going to have a handout attached to or related to this this chat today. So if you go on greaterhartfordwellness.com, you can see the recording of this, and then there should be a button that allows you to download the PDF handout so that you can kind of get a review of what we talked about, and also a couple of exercises. So really quick to recap, look at your relationship with an activity, ask yourself how it's informing, how it's serving you, and if you feel like it's numbing, then I want you to consider changing your relationship to it. So practice mindfully in that exercise and knowing that difference between comfort and numbing, and then make a plan to help stay on track. Another example really quick that I had prepared for this chat today is, we end up watching endless hours of TV. It's really easy to binge on, Netflix and things because a whole season's released at the same time. Maybe you make a plan to watch a certain amount each day. So one of the things that I really love and get carried away with is watching movies. And so one of the ways that I'm keeping track and making a plan is I'm trying to watch all the Oscar winning movies of this year, and I'm portioning it out on different days. Okay. So hope you all are doing well and staying healthy, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.